In this episode, we talk about Punjab's largest land acquisition drive under a new pooling policy that's facing growing backlash from farmers and economists. We also take a look at the evolving legal crisis surrounding former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina after a tribunal sentenced her in a contempt case. But we begin with an Indian Express investigation that exposes how cyber fraudsters are laundering stolen money through a network of mule accounts. Hi, I'm Ichha Sharma, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Over the past few years, India has seen a sharp rise in cyber fraud and digital arrests, where scamsters trap victims through fake interrogations on video calls before draining their bank accounts. Last year alone, 1.23 lakh such cases were reported, with fraudsters managing to siphon off nearly 2,000 crore rupees. That's almost 3 times the number of cases reported in 2022.
Hello.
नरेश बात कर रहे हो?
हाँ बोलो
सर पुलिस लाइन से राहुल बात कर रहा हूँ. ये आयुष कौन है?
नमस्कार जी.
नमस्कार.
मिस्टर आकाश वर्मा बात कर रहा हूँ सीबीआई क्राइम ब्रांच से. अभी भी हमने 4 लड़के अरेस्ट किए हैं रेप केस में. एक लड़के ने आपका नंबर दिया.
देखिए, जो आपने एफआईआर नंबर मुझे सेंड किया है, इस नंबर के खिलाफ 17 कंप्लेंट्स हमारे पास. आप ये नंबर यूज कर रहे हैं?
मैंने नहीं यूज करता.
Experts say scamsters have become increasingly sophisticated, and with the use of AI, they can now manipulate audio to convincingly mimic the voices of people you know. And that's how people from all walks of life end up losing their life savings. Now, to get an insight into what actually happens to the money once it leaves the victim's account, a recent Indian Express investigation tracked the entire money trail in one such case. And what it revealed was a vast network of mule accounts used to transfer crores of rupees within minutes. And shockingly, those meant to investigate such crimes are often either turning a blind eye or in some cases actively complicit. In this segment, my colleague Shashank Bhargava speaks to the Indian Express's Ritu Sarin, who led the investigation for the paper.
Ritu, in this investigation, the case you focus on involves a woman in her 40s. She's an ad executive, she lives in Gurgaon, and a total of 5.85 crore rupees were taken out of her account. And what you did was track what actually happened to that money.
Yeah, so, we just thought we will go in-depth, probe, investigate, whatever you want to call it, one case. Because, there's a plethora of these cases going on. Like today, after I finished this series, in the course of 2 days, I've got so many calls from people I know. Oh, this happened to my maid. Today, I got a call from a very senior TV anchor that today there was an attempt to digitally, fraud him this morning. So this is so frequent.
Right, and when we talk about this woman, she actually visited 2 branches of HDFC Bank near her house, and she took this money out and then she transferred the 5.85 crore rupees in tranches of 99 lakhs each. Tell us, where does all this go?
So the money, she withdrew it from these 2 places, these 2 banks, which I of course visited. And subsequently from her one account, it goes to 28 accounts. And from 28 accounts, it goes to 141 accounts. And it's all over the country. It's in 15 states. So this is a typical case in that sense where the trail becomes so diverse and it is spread over such a vast area. So it becomes a major, interstate investigation.
Yeah, and the first account that this money actually goes to belongs to this man named Piyush from Haryana. He's 26 years old, and you actually visited this man's house. Tell us what you found out.
So if I can say so, the difference between this story and the, spate of other stories that have been done on digital arrest cases is that I tracked the mules themselves. The whole attempt was to track the mule account holders, and it's very revelatory because they are these poor people who have, inadvertently or have been forced to open bank accounts and don't know what happens to the account subsequently. So similarly with Piyush, he's a young unemployed boy, giving some exams to get a job in a village called Subana. I didn't even have the full address, but I managed to meet his parents. When I met them a month ago, he had just been released on bail and has been sent to a relative's house. But his parents are, of course, now fighting the legal battles. He, along with a lot of that entire ring of young boys who had pressurized Piyush to opening this account were arrested in this very case. So he has an account in an ICICI bank in Jhajjar. So where I went and I met the manager and all that. And of course, very low balances. And all this money goes to his account and there's no red flag raised in the bank. From this Piyush's account, the money is transferred by the victim on 2 days. On day 1, it takes 5 minutes for the money, almost 3 crores, to move to these 28 accounts I told you. And on day 2, it takes precisely 35 seconds for this money to move out of Piyush's accounts to the other accounts which I also probed.
And we understand that all the money is eventually moved out of his account, right? So did he get anything in the process?
Whether he did or not, I can't conclusively say. His parents say he got nothing, but I did hear that he may have got a few lakhs, but nothing conclusive.
Okay, and after Piyush's account, the money, like you said, is transferred to 28 different accounts. And 11 of those accounts were from the Srinivasa Padmavati Bank in Hyderabad. And we understand that it was the manager of this bank, Venkateshwaralu Samudrala, who has now been linked to this case.
So he's the one who opened many of the mule accounts, and the cops have picked him up. And after they picked him up, they realized that he is already got 3 cases of cryptocurrency against him in Gujarat. So this guy, whose name is Samudrala, has just been released on bail a few days before he was picked up in the Gurgaon case. So all this has been happening. So my assignment was to go to the homes to track down this one tailor, one carpenter, one auto rickshaw driver. You know, there was a lady called Roya Sharda. There was a carpenter called Ravinder. I sat in their home for 2 hours, waiting for him to come with his wife and his little child. Roya herself is taking care of 2 very young daughters alone, trying to make a living by stitching clothes part-time. And very sad. They met them somewhere, one in a dhaba, one in a bus, and said, "Aap ye bank account kholo aur aapko naukri mil jayegi." So they were promised jobs by him, and that's how they opened the bank accounts, and they don't know what happened subsequently. 21 crores has passed through these bank accounts. It's not only the part of the 5.85 of the Gurgaon victim. Maybe half went to these and half went to the other, but 21 crores has passed through these accounts.
Right, and for these 3 people, for example, their addresses were actually provided to the bank. But for other accounts, the addresses were all made up, right?
Yeah. So even the police, when they went to Hyderabad, the team of the SIT realized that the addresses that were with the bank are mostly fictitious, and there are only 3 people they could track down.
And this is important because, the suspicion now falls on the bank because these accounts were opened by the manager, by someone working in the bank.
Absolutely. Then there's outflow so fast from the Hyderabad bank to other places for the money to disappear. And it's obviously being done by the complicity of the bank officials, including Samudrala. And scoopy bit is that when the Gurgaon police approached, the Ministry of Home Affairs has a unit called I4C that track and is a repository of all cyber crimes all over the country. And many big banks have appointed nodal officers that I4C is in touch with. Anyways, so when they contacted I4C for data on, or if they have anything on these very 11 accounts, they found that there were already 181 complaints registered, logged in with the I4C for these very 11 accounts. Now that makes the story bigger.
And when such large and unusual transactions are happening in small accounts, there are red flags that are supposed to go off in these banks, especially in big ones like HDFC. But that clearly doesn't seem to be happening, which brings us to another account that you tracked for the story, one under the name of the Jivika Foundation. Now, this account is at the center of at least 6 different police investigations across various states. And it saw some very unusual transactions. For instance, in one case you highlight, the opening balance is just 556 rupees. And then on a single day, 3.72 crore was credited to the account. And then immediately after, 3.3 crore rupees was debited. I mean, these are really big numbers for an account like that.
Yeah, so similarly, just like in the case of Subana, which is the name of the Piyush's village, and Jhajjar, firstly it's Jhajjar. Secondly, the family of this Piyush runs a small dairy farm in Subana, and this boy is unemployed whose account it is. I mean, shouldn't it raise some red flags when crores are coming in, and coming in such a short span of time? Similarly, bank in which this other account I was looking at was opened is HDFC in Karol Bagh. and it is opened by someone giving an address for Trilokpuri, an apartment in Trilokpuri. So account is opened in Karol Bagh of a foundation called Jivika Foundation in Trilokpuri, and look at the kind of money that suddenly passes through one fine day for an account which has a balance of 500 rupees. And informally, I got to know from the bank, though we approached them and they said we have done all due diligence and KYC was done for the account and all that debit blocking was done for this outflow of money, 3.3 crore out of the 3.7 crore that had come in, when there was only about 38 lakhs left. So if red flags were raised, it was too late. But anyways, so this account and Trilokpuri and Jivika Foundation came into focus because a complaint of digital arrest had been made by a retired Air Force officer who also lives in Gurgaon. And just look at his plight. 1.59 crore he lost. And he's barely got any money back.
Right, and can you talk a bit about what one has to do to get their money back in such situations?
So what a victim has to do is to, of course, first get a lawyer and then go and get court orders from the court for recovery of the money from individual banks. Firstly, the money is dispersed into so many banks, so it's not easy, but you go from bank to bank holding copies of court orders. And almost all the victims I spoke to said that once they have got a lawyer and once a lawyer has managed to get court orders to get their money back for individual banks, every time they go holding the court order to the bank says, sorry, the money is gone because someone was here before you, or 2 people were here before you, or 5 other people were claiming the same money, so we've given it to them. It is first come, first serve. In each case, I found this very unfortunate pattern, including that of Biren Yadav. And in the case of Biren Yadav, there are police departments of 5 or 6 states visiting Jivika Foundation and going to Trilokpuri, including a police team from Srinagar, finding out where this Jivika Foundation has gone because there are so many bank frauds.
Okay, so because the Jivika Foundation account has been used to defraud so many people, when someone goes to the bank and says, look, my money was transferred to this account and I want it back, the bank turns around and says, no, someone else has already claimed it, so we can't return it to you.
And this is the interstate dimension of these digital fraud scams I'm talking about. Why does it become so difficult for the police, investigators, even the government? Is because the dispersal of money and the money vanishes into so many black holes, as we've written, in so many parts of the country. The other angle also is that, at least in the case of mutual funds, if you have withdrawn money from your mutual funds and given it to the fraudsters, the bank in any case will say you had this money till this date, so please pay tax and capital gains tax. Quite bizarre.
Okay, so this does raise some really serious concerns about what banks need to do, right? Because how is it that so many huge and unusual transactions are happening and the banks are not being able to act in time?
Yeah, so in Jhajjar, nobody does anything. In Karol Bagh, if something was done, it was too late. 4/5 of the money is already gone out. So you can see the public awareness campaign that the government has unleashed. It's everywhere. It's on television, it's on radio. Despite that, as I told you, I am getting so many calls and we are hearing of so many cases. So it is relentless,
And Ritu, when you were going through these cases, did you find any pattern when it came to who the victims were?
Is there a pattern? Well, there is a pattern. Maybe many are post-60, children living abroad, lonely, 1 or 2 planning to settle abroad, things like that. But look at where they are coming from. I interviewed people who were in the army, retired army generals, from the medical profession, publishing, scientists working in government jobs even now, so they didn't want to give their names. A retired IAF, I told you. So look at the kind of people who are being hit.
And you also spoke to a number of experts for this story. Tell us, what did they have to say about what one should keep in mind to avoid falling prey to such scams?
So the experts did come up with some simplistic answers and also said that, many countries, this is not a problem of India alone. Like the UK has just end of last year, I think in October, brought out a fresh regulation where if something like this happens, I think they have put a bar of about 50,000 pounds of recovery. It's not endless money that you can recover, probably 55,000 pounds. The liability will be on the financial institution where the money is deposited and from where it is withdrawn, both sides. So that's interesting. Can India do something like that? because the problem is just becoming more acute and serious by the day. So other simplistic solutions were given, like having a separate phone, have two phones, but for all the OTPs and all you get from your bank, every time you withdraw rupees 100 or rupees 10 lakhs or whatever it is, have a separate phone for all transactions, all banking transactions, all financial transactions, have a separate phone and have one telephone for your personal and other business work. And of course, do not pick up unknown numbers. Do not pick up the phone even if the voice sounds familiar. Call up that person instead and just have the firewalls in your head.
And now we shift our focus to Punjab, which is currently witnessing one of its largest ever land acquisition drives. Spread across 40,000 acres and 158 villages, the drive is being carried out under a new land pooling policy aimed at urbanization and real estate development. The move, described by the state government as a bold and voluntary reform, is now facing mounting backlash from farmers, economists, and political opponents. The strongest resistance is currently centered in Ludhiana, where over 23,000 acres across 44 villages have been earmarked, making it the single largest chunk of land under the new initiative. Now, last month, farmers from over 35 villages staged a protest outside the Greater Ludhiana Area Development Authority office, accusing the government of siding with developers and what they call land sharks. In this segment, we talk to the Indian Express's Kanchan Vasdev about the land acquisition plan and what it means for the future of India's agrarian heartland. Kanchan, begin by telling us what is this new land pooling model and how is it different from the conventional land acquisition initiatives?
This is a new policy called the Land Pooling Policy 2025. It involves landowners voluntarily contributing contiguous parcels of land for development. Instead of outright selling of land, which used to happen earlier at fixed compensation, the farmers now receive a share of developed residential and commercial plots, proportional to their contribution once the infrastructure is all in place. So the government, it coordinates planning, infrastructure, and all the approvals which are required for setting up the residential societies and these housing projects. So this is in contrast with the conventional method because earlier the state used to forcibly acquire land under the Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act. And, advertisement was inserted and farmers are told that their land is of interest to the government and this would now be acquired. And then the compensation was paid and the full ownership of the land was with the government. It was not with the farmers and the landowners. In this case, the farmers will be getting a share. Like for every 1 acre of land, they would be getting 1,000 square yard worth a residential plot and 200 square yard worth a commercial SEO or something like that. So this is the difference. And if they say no to the government, that they don't want to offer it for their acquisition, then it will not be taken.
Right, and considering the scale of this model, can you tell us how significant is this drive for the state?
Yes, it is the largest land acquisition drive in the state's history. Like 40,000 acres of land across 158 villages, they will be taken over. And out of that, 24,000 acres is only near Ludhiana, which is like the biggest city of the state. And the government, it says that it's a bold reform to promote planned urban expansion and improve the infrastructure and curb illegal colonies. So government is promising that it would offer 400% returns to participating landowners with full amenities and developed plots. But because it is regarding 40,000 acres of land, so it's like getting a lot of attention everywhere.
And Kanchan, why are so many farmers against this move, especially in places like Ludhiana?
So obviously the farmers are saying it's their agricultural land, it's a way of their livelihood. So they see this acquisition as a threat to their livelihood. They are saying that this loss of farmland will be like, there would be uncertain returns. Then once their land is taken, they don't know what they will do. Like most of them are dependent on agriculture for their living. They survive on this land. And if this land goes, the entire ecosystem that goes with it. This is what they're saying. And they're saying that there's no Gram Sabha which has been consulted and no Panchayat's consent was sought before the government brought up with this policy. And then there are accusations of a smokescreen. They're saying that it's a land grab in disguise. And the government is playing a property dealer. That it will hand over the land to the developers and then the farmers will not have anywhere to go.
And of course, the government has called this a bold reform. But talk about what is their argument in favor of this policy.
They're saying that it's 100% voluntary, as they've already said, and there is no forced acquisition. And they're saying that this will be totally an individual decision, whether the landowner, he wants to offer it to the government or he doesn't want to offer it to the government. And then they're saying that it is actually going to help them with the benefits like plot share, high returns, because they're saying like there is a 1,000 square yard worth of a plot, then they can sell it for so many times, like 400% returns that they're saying. And then there would be modern amenities in those colonies. Then the chief minister himself, tried to allay the fears when he said that the model tackles the illegal land mafias and it improves living. There is mushrooming of illegal colonies all across the state. And because there is, lack of government-owned housing projects. So then he's saying that when there is so much of space available for living, then people will obviously buy the government-developed plots and houses instead of, getting cheated.
And Kanchan, you write in your piece that many economists and activists are warning that this model could harm Punjab's long-term stability. So can you tell us what exact flaws have they pointed out in this approach?
They're saying that, the government is promising a 400% return, but nobody knows well whether there would be any takers of these housing colonies and the houses and the plots. They're saying that the market absorption always remains uncertain. Dr. S.S. Johal, we have a very noted economist in Punjab. He said that if you come to Ludhiana, you see many walled plots which people have bought, constructed the boundary walls and just left them there. For years together, they are there without any construction, being undertaken on them or anybody constructing a house. So he says that this means that actually there is no demand. So that is why nobody's buying that property. And nobody's selling that also. Then they are also saying that Punjab has 1.25 crore acres of land, under which almost 1 crore acre is under agriculture. So that's the kind of volume under the agriculture. So out of this, almost 158 villages would be consumed by urbanization, which is like 40,000 acres of land, which is a huge piece. So they have voiced their concerns about this massive acquisition. They are saying that huge chunks of agriculture going the development way is totally wrong. And they are saying that the government should, think vertically instead of going horizontal, because we are an agrarian state and giving away agricultural land is not a good idea at all. And they're saying that when Chandigarh was developed, then those villages which are not fertile, they were acquired. And the same practice should have been followed here also, because in Punjab now most of the land is fertile, where paddy and wheat is sown. And then there are allegations of insiders benefiting from the entire process. There are allegations already surfacing that some AAP leaders and cronies, they acquired the land prior to this announcement because they knew that, this is going to be acquired for the development and the prices will grow manifold.
Right. And could you talk about, what is the opposition's case against the AAP government's land push?
See, the regional party Shiromani Akali Dal, led by Sukhbir Singh Badal, it has already stated that they would be launching an agitation, a massive one, from July 15th. So they are planning mass protests and affidavit campaigns, taking affidavits from the farmers saying that they are not willing to offer their land. And they're calling it a coercive land grab, benefiting the Aam Aadmi Party financially. Then BJP State Chief Sunil Jakhar, he said that it's like a bank of robbers, They are creating a bank of robbers. They are acquiring so much of money and there would be kickbacks. And then the Aam Aadmi Party is colluding with the real estate developers for commissions. And he's called for a High Court monitored inquiry and questioning of all these leaders, and including the CM also. Then the Congress party is also branding it as a sinister land grab, saying that a white paper should be, printed on it and legal probe should be conducted and then the policy should be rolled back. So these are the critical voices.
And finally, Kanchan, are there any plans to challenge this policy in the courts? Like, is there a legal recourse for, those protesting against this?
See, there can be a PIL. Somebody can go to the court and challenge it. Then the government will now be doing a notification under the 1995 Act for the designated areas. So that also can be challenged. Then the Gram Sabhas are also saying that they have not been consulted. Panchayats can also reject it. They can, pass a resolution saying that they are not willing to do it. Then there are protests, then there are affidavits, and then all this may delay the implementation. And then some parties are also seeking a judicial review. So it could hinge on whether this act was bypassed improperly or not, or whether consent process was followed. All this to be seen legally yet. But the way the protests are happening and the opposition is raising a lot of voice, so it looks like that some PILs are going to be filed. So let's see.
And in the end, we turn our attention to the former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Yesterday, Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal, or ICT, sentenced Hasina to 6 months in prison in a contempt of court case. This is the first instance of a court verdict against Hasina since she left office in August 2024. According to the Dhaka Tribune, while this specific case pertains to contempt charges, it comes against the backdrop of larger and more serious legal actions against Hasina. Just last month, the ICT had charged her with crimes against humanity, alleging her involvement in a state-sanctioned crackdown during the nationwide uprising of July and August 2024. Chief Prosecutor Mohammad Tajul Islam and his team submitted that Hasina had ordered mass killings during those protests. The tribunal is now proceeding separately with the main case involving these charges. The contempt ruling delivered this week does not address those charges but adds to the existing legal actions against the former Awami League leader. The 3-member bench also sentenced another individual, Shakil Akand Bulbul, to 2 months in prison in the same contempt case. Hasina resigned from her post on 5th of August 2024 during widespread protests in Dhaka. As demonstrators defied curfew orders, she vacated her official residence and fled the country. Reports say that she flew out by helicopter which entered Indian airspace and eventually landed at a border security force helipad in Agartala. From there, she made her way to Delhi. Since then, Hasina has remained outside Bangladesh, and there has been no official word on her legal representation or her response to the charges. The tribunal's decision marks a crucial turn in the ongoing legal and political fallout following the unrest of 2024. This verdict is part of a series of cases initiated by the ICT, which was originally constituted to investigate crimes from the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, but now has expanded to cover recent events categorized as crimes against humanity. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank Bhargava and me, Ichha Sharma. If you like the show, do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. You can also recommend it to someone you think may like it, with a friend or in your family. This is the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast or write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.